This episode of Simple Civics, Greenville County is made possible by Beth and Mike Andrews, Kelly Byers and Tom Wagner, Elizabeth and Grant Bogus. We thank them for their support and for connecting you, our listeners, with candidates so you'll be informed voters this primary season. You can give to Simple Civics too. Just visit our website at simplecivicsgreenvillecounty.org. On Tuesday, June 9th, South Carolina holds its statewide primary elections. I'm Katie Smith with Greater Good Greenville, and over the next several weeks, we are pleased to bring you interviews with most of the candidates in contested races that are in Greenville County. Today, we feature the race for South Carolina House of Representatives District 10, an area that includes Powdersville and parts of Anderson, Pickens, and Greenville counties. This race includes two candidates on the Republican side, Stuart Watson and the incumbent Thomas Beach. Whichever candidate wins the Republican primary in June will go on to face Democratic candidate Josh Stewart on the November 3rd ballot. But first, a quick primer on why primaries are so important. The statewide primaries are when political parties choose their candidates to be on the ballot in the general election on November 3rd. This primary on June 9th will be for important offices like State House of Representatives, Governor, State Superintendent of Education, Congress, and one of our U.S. Senate seats, and our Greenville County Council. Some of these primary races will determine the winner in November because no one from a different party has filed to run, meaning that practically speaking, the June 9th primary is the election. In South Carolina, we don't register to vote by party, and all primaries are open, meaning you're free to vote in either the Republican or Democratic primary ballot. Of course, there are other parties, but they don't have a primary in our state. We did an episode that explains how all this works, and we'll link it in the show notes for you. If you want to see which district you live in and who will be on your ballot, you can check out the links on the episode page for a sample ballot from the South Carolina Election Commission. All of the details on how these interviews worked are at the end of the episode and in the show notes. But in short, know that each candidate had the same 3 questions and 10 timed minutes to respond. To find links to each candidate's campaign information, please check the show notes. For this episode, we are joined by Republican primary candidate Stuart Watson. Thomas Beach did not respond to numerous invitations by email, phone, and text. I'm pleased to be joined by Stuart Watson, who is running in the Republican primary for House District 10. Thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
Great. Well, tell us about yourself and why you're running for office.
Okay, I've got a pretty wide background, so let me try and keep it limited, okay? The first thing I want my people to know is that I am not a politician, okay? I'm just a regular guy who's running for office. I'm not interested in playing the game of politics. I'm interested in representing my district. So if you're looking to elect someone who's a politician, I'm not the guy. I'm a retired college professor. I'm a retired business owner in my district. I used to do work for various governmental agencies in Eastern Europe and South and Central America and Mexico. That was a previous lifetime. So I've been around the globe a little bit. I was a child psychology professor, so I'm very interested in child-related issues and educational issues, among other things. And so my background, I believe, is as wide and broad as it is. It's allowed me to narrow down some interests and some expertise that I've developed over the years.
Thank you. What do you believe are the biggest issues facing constituents?
Wow. My district is an unusual district. It's actually 3 counties. It's primarily Anderson County, but a sliver of Pickens County and a sliver of Greenville County as well. And so, and one of the major towns, Powdersville, it's not really a town because it's unincorporated, actually is in each of those 3 counties. And it's unincorporated, which means it doesn't have any city representation. We obviously operate under the county council, but so it's a different kind of district because of the way the lines are drawn and who it represents. This district has and continues to see unprecedented growth, population growth. We're taking old farmland now and turning it into 500 house developments, 600 house developments, 1,000 houses. We're building multi-family units everywhere. And so growth and change is good, in my opinion, right? It brings economic revitalization to the area. It brings a lot of different things to the area. It attracts people from all over the country here because of the beauty of our district. But the one thing that it also does is it places demands on your infrastructure, roadways, water, sewer, things like that. And in the past 6 or 8 years, we just haven't kept up. We haven't developed the infrastructure to support that kind of growth. And so we have bridges in our district that were built in 1948 that are going to be desperately in need of repair. One's under repair right now, but those are going to come due at not the same time, but it's going to be a quick succession, right? We haven't really analyzed how to alleviate the traffic problems in my district. And so that's one of the things I really want to focus very strongly on is how do we improve infrastructure, not just for now, but let's predict the growth we're going to have 5, 10, 15 years from now, because we know it's going to occur, right? And so how do we alter our infrastructure and build in programs and plans for maintenance of that infrastructure for the growth that we know has occurred and is going to come? A second thing that comes with that population growth is demands on education. So if you build 1,500 new homes, right, in a district, and that's about what's going up right now in my district, 1,500, average of 2.5 children per household. Now you're talking about another 3,500 to 4,000 children that are going to be in the educational system, right? Okay, so how many more elementary schools are you going to need? How many more middle schools? How many more high schools? When I grew up in Anderson County, and I grew up there, I was born in my district, was raised there, graduated Wren High School in 1980. There was one high school, Wren High School. I think we had maybe 165 people in our graduating class. Now we have 2 high schools, Powdersville High, Wren High, Palmetto High, a few others. So now the high school population has grown well as well. So how are we going to fund the development of education in our area? Where are we going to get the land? Where are we going to put the schools? There's a new elementary school that's opening on Oak Road. It's under development now. It's going to open. It's already filled to max capacity. So all the new people that are coming in, where are you going to put their children? Where are you going to educate those kids? And we know that that's very expensive, very costly. How are we going to plan for that? And you can plan for the current situation, but you can't do that and neglect what's coming 5, 10, 15 years down the road. So that's going to be another emphasis of mine. Another emphasis that I think spurs economic development and also helps to reduce government waste and fraud is to cut taxes on people, right? And I know every person who runs for office says we need to cut taxes. I have a very specific plan for cutting not all taxes. We have to start slow and figure out how to replace that revenue. But one of the things that really bothers me is that we've allowed ourselves to be taxed on our personal property. So I often ask people, how many of you own your own home? Everybody pretty much raises their hand. I'm like, no, you're actually leasing it from the government every year, because if you don't pay your taxes and you exceed a certain amount of years or months and you don't pay your taxes, the government will seize your property. So it's kind of really like on loan from the government. I don't think there's any reason why you should have to pay every year taxes on your personal property. Car tax, land tax, home tax. You pay it one time and you're done, right? So I think by focusing on those things, and if people have more money, we know what people do when they have more money in their pockets. They invigorate the local economy. A lot of people don't travel internationally or nationally. They spend money in their own backyard. And I think if I can focus on those three things, and maybe a couple of others, then it will actually spur the growth in that entire area.
Thank you. What would be your priorities if elected?
Wow. Okay. Everybody's got their priorities, right? I've got several. Obviously, focusing on development of infrastructure and plans for maintenance of that infrastructure. Also in the education. One of the things I want to look very closely at is not necessarily eliminating earmarks, but reducing earmarks. We know that once you earmark money for something, it's hard to take it away. And so I don't know all the earmarks in the budget now. I haven't perused all 3,000 pages of the budget from last year, from 2023, but I do know that there are earmarks that we can either reduce or eliminate that will bring more money back to the state. I think one thing we really have to do and look at very closely is the regulations regarding particularly small businesses. We know the more government regulations that a business has, it's more restrictive. It makes it more difficult to open and maintain businesses. And if you have regulations, you have to have someone to monitor those and enforce those, right? So, for instance, I found out something the other day I did not know. If you have a little farm on your property, right, and you have chickens and you want to sell eggs, you can sell them from your farm, right? And that's okay. You can sell them from your farm. But I can't take them off of my farm property. I couldn't walk across the neighbor's house, across the road to the neighbor's house, bring him or her a dozen eggs and have them pay me there. That would be illegal. It goes against the egg rules. So you have to have an egg license. If you want to sell your eggs from some location other than your own farm, in other words, transact money, then you have to have a license to do that. Okay? We've been buying and selling eggs for hundreds of years in this country without an egg license. And to my knowledge, no one's ever died or become impaired because of that, right? So I don't know how that came about, but it violates my number one rule about government. It violates the common sense rule. If you look at a piece of legislation or a rule or regulation and and you ask yourself as a voter, that doesn't make common sense. That just makes no sense at all. It violates our sense of reasonableness, right? That's the number one thing that I think that we as legislators, state senators, and even at the federal level, if we look at things at bills that are being sponsored and we ask ourselves, is that reasonable? Does that make sense to me? If the answer is no, then why are we passing legislation that doesn't not only make sense to us, but if it doesn't make sense to us and we have all of that background and context information, it's certainly not going to make any sense to or have any sense of reasonableness to our constituency. And so that's going to be one of my big rules for myself if I'm elected is not to vote for things that violate that common sense, that reasonableness standard. And then there are some times that you have to vote on things a certain way, maybe because you are compromising or maybe because you have information that your constituency doesn't have. So for me, one of the big things that I think is important as a legislator would be to communicate and be transparent to my constituency. Because if they ask me, Stuart, why did you vote for this in this way? That's not how I would have voted. I want to be able to explain to them, here are the factors that led to my decision making. You may not agree with them, but I want people to understand what those factors were that led to my decision so that it doesn't appear that I'm acting randomly or against the interests of my district.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much for your willingness to serve.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure being here.
Thanks for listening to the candidates. Here is more detail on our process. All candidates received the same 3 questions at the time of their invitation to join us shortly after the filing period closed, and they were given 10 timed minutes for their interview. Candidates were allowed to bring along a companion, such as a campaign manager, family member, or friend, and to record our session themselves. There were no edits made to the interviews. We've put links to the participating candidates' preferred internet presence on the episode page.
Hi, Simple Civics Greenville County listeners, Nathaniel here. If you've made it this far, then we think you'll really love our newsletter. Sign up for bonus content, updates, and more right in your inbox. Look for the link in the description that says newsletter to sign up, or visit us at simplecivicsgreenvillecounty.org. Find the link in the menu that says newsletter and sign up there. We'll see you again next week.